Welcome to my channel. My name is Katrin.pfitzenreiter. I'm a local real estate agent here in Sarasota County and Manatee County. Today what we're going to do is look at Sarasota specific data as it relates to the real estate market to provide you with an idea of how things are trending. We all know that since the pandemic, the real estate market has been insane. Depending on where you live or we're looking to buy in Florida, you could have seen a price appreciation of over 50% in some areas over the last 2 years. Now, Florida has been on a lot of people's wish list for a long time, even prior to the pandemic, but that's been intensified since the pandemic, and it seems like everybody is looking to move to Florida. Now, a lot has shifted over the last 3 months, where prior to 3 months ago, it was so common to see multi offers on a particular house. I was in a situation where I put an offer in for a buyer and we were competing against 30 other offers. And that was quite the norm, but things have changed and it's a lot more even now when it comes to the playing field. Let's look at some data and hopefully it's going to help you make a decision of whether now is the time to buy or if you should wait longer. So I touched a little bit on consumer confidence, and what I wanted to point out is this article from CNBC, which came out yesterday, August 8th. And the headline is "Consumer confidence in the housing market hits the lowest point in over a decade." And I would say I absolutely agree with that, just based on conversations that I'm having with buyers, with a lot of you out there. They're hoping that the real estate market is going to come crashing down. They're truly believing it because they're thinking, well, how can prices come up so high when it looks like we're heading into a recession? Inflation is really high, mortgage rates have come up, and the wages and the salaries just aren't keeping up. Well, when it comes to the real estate market, it really falls down to supply and demand, and that's what's causing the prices that we're seeing in the marketplace. And right now there's still enough demand and not enough supply to keep the prices relatively level. Now, of course, real estate needs to be looked at on a local level, and in certain areas you might actually see prices coming down. But I would say in general across the US, prices are keeping pretty steady, and that's because demand is still out there. So what I want to point out is this official graph from the White House. And what it shows here is the housing supply and prices. The dark line here, that is supply, and the light blue line here is prices. And what you see is as supply goes up, prices come down. And this is why I'm saying that when it comes to prices in the real estate market, it really comes down to supply and demand. So let's look at 2021 and past that. You see the supply line here, it's at a historic low. And what happened, of course, we all know the prices have shot up, especially over the last few years. Now, for the market to level out, or for the market to experience price drops, one of two things need to happen here. Demand needs to drop off, or we need to add more homes to the marketplace while demand stays steady. Let's talk a little bit about supply. What I wanted to point out is this article here. This is from June 15th of this year, NPR article, and the headline is "The U.S. needs more homes, but builders may be slowing construction." And that is because they're probably pulling back as we're moving into a possible recession. Inflation isn't helping this, so they're making sure that from a business standpoint, they're moving in the right direction to counterbalance a potential recession, so cutting costs, right? Now, this is not helping the supply issue that we're already dealing with. As I'm scrolling down in this article here, this is interesting. The U.S. is about 4 million homes short of what's needed to keep up with demand. 4 million, according to Freddie Mac. And a lot of articles are saying that it could take 5 to 10 years to kind of rectify the supply and demand challenge. Of course, a lot of this is dependent upon demand. If it falls off, then supply, based on what we currently have, is going to go much further because there's less people to satisfy. But here is where the challenge comes in. There's a generational group called millennials, and it's the largest generation that we have in terms of the number of people in that generation versus all the other generations like baby boomers. The average age of them is about 30 to 32 years old. Most of them are renters, so they're becoming first-time home buyers. And in a lot of cases, it may make more sense for them to purchase versus rent. And they're going to be putting additional pressure on the demand side here. And so when we talk about a possible market crash, I just, based on the data that I'm reviewing, the market forecast, just don't see it happening I don't see it happening this year or next year. Let's look at a projection from Fannie Mae. This is going to be interesting here. So it's an article from Fannie Mae. It dates back to July 20th, so not that long ago. And the headline here is Economic Growth Stagnating as Record Inflation Persists. That is true. Now, what's interesting though is that they're still projecting a price increase this year versus same time last year. So let's read what they're saying here. They revised upward its home price appreciation forecast to 16% year-over-year growth in 2022 from the previously projected 10.8%. And they're also expecting there to be a slight price increase in 2023. So now let's look at Sarasota data. To help us understand what's going on in the Sarasota market, we're going to look at MarketQuest, which is a dashboard that I'm using from Coldwell Banker. The MLS data gets pushed into this dashboard. I love using this because it's a very easy way to kind of understand what's happening. There's lots of graphs, lots of trend lines, and I think for the purpose of this presentation, it's going to be good. I have this already focused on Sarasota and single family homes. So we're going to look at what is happening in Sarasota when you're looking at the single family home market. So let's go down to the average and median sales price. I typically like to focus on the median, which is kind of the middle of the pack price, because that average sales price can be heavily skewed because of major multi-million-dollar homes. Think of the $10 to $20 million homes that get sold. But even if we look at both of them, right? So here, if we look at the blue line, that's the average sales price. The median sales price is in green. Even these two, when we look at these two, the prices have not dropped. As a matter of fact, it's higher in July than it was in June. Average sales price in July was close to $700,000. When we look at the median, it was $500,000 in July, and in June, it was close to $493,000. Now, when we look at the sales price, list price, what this is basically telling us is that the prices are not selling at list price. I mean, slightly below that. And so you're seeing a lot of price adjustments in the market, right, across the United States, and that also holds true here in Sarasota. I believe it's because the prices were set way too high. Sellers need to go through a little bit of an adjustment period here, understanding that the market is changing. It's not what it was in January or February of this year, so you can't go crazy on your list prices on homes. And so the price reductions in many cases are based on the fact that they had to come down to fair market value, which is really based on recent comps. The average sales price per square foot hasn't dropped, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm saying that the price cuts are really based on the fact that the homes were being priced too high initially. When we look at inventory has gone up quite a bit since the beginning of the year, and that's really because a lot of buyers are now priced out of the market, and also some buyers who could be purchasing right now are a bit fearful because of all the negative headlines, and everybody's waiting for the market to crash. So they're kind of waiting the sidelines. Based on my conversations with a lot of these buyers, they're waiting to see what happens after the summer. Now, looking at new listings, initially in March, April, May, and June, there's a bit of a spike. And here what was happening is that sellers, just as much as buyers, were worried about the real estate market changing, so were sellers, and a lot of them were rushing to list their properties. And so what you're seeing here is kind of that initial rush, and now it's starting to drop off a bit, and it's really close to actually where it was in July of last year. Average days on market here, it's gone up slightly, 17 days in June, 21 days in July, which is still, when you go back to the prior year or even 2020, very, very low. If we look at condominiums, there was actually a slight drop off in prices, whether we're looking at the average price and the median price. And if we look at certain neighborhoods, take Palmer Ranch, which is a really popular neighborhood, zip code is 34238. When I look at Palmer Ranch to see how it was trending over the last few months, there was also somewhat of a price drop. And so what you need to understand is that when we look at overall Sarasota, just single family homes, it's holding pretty steady. When we look at certain neighborhoods, some of them will do better than others. Some of them will have increased in prices, and some of them will have gone down in prices. When we look at condominiums, the prices are slightly down as well. So, it's so important to really dig into the data. I was giving you a high level view based on the fact that most of you are probably going to be interested in single family homes and just an overall understanding of what's happening in the single family home market in Sarasota. And if you have any questions whatsoever, whether you're buying a single family home or a condominium or a townhouse in different places of interest in Sarasota, if you already know your neighborhood and you want to understand what the trend is or has been over the last 6 months, a year, call me, email me. I will be more than happy to provide you with that information. I think it's going to help you understand whether now is a good time to buy or if you should wait a few more months, maybe you wait until next year. But you need to be comfortable in whatever decision that you make. Thank you so much for watching today. I always appreciate it when you do, especially when you're here until the very end. Thank you so much. Take care.